As they lowered Evelyn Hart's husband into the ground, the sound of falling soil echoed like a heartbeat fading away. She stood at the edge of the grave, clutching a folded tissue that had long since lost its use. Around her were strangers, faces from her husband's workplace and the hospice staff who had come to pay their respects. Not one member of her own family appeared. No parents, no sister, not even her lifelong friend Leah. They had all chosen to attend Rachel's engagement party instead. When her phone buzzed in her bag, she almost ignored it. A message blinked on the screen. "We need to talk now." It was from her mother. The words blurred as Evelyn blinked back tears. 22 missed calls. 22 attempts to intrude on a moment they hadn't cared enough to share. The rain began to fall harder, drumming against umbrellas held by kind strangers. A hospice nurse laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Do you want to step inside, dear?" Evelyn shook her head. "Not yet." "He hated umbrellas," she murmured. The woman nodded and stepped back. Evelyn whispered softly to the coffin, "You were the only person who ever saw me." Years earlier, Evelyn had met Marcus Hale in the university library. He'd been rushing to return engineering manuals and collided with her stack of psychology textbooks. "Guess I just failed Physics 101 and Public Grace in one move," he joked, crouching to help. She had laughed, a sound that surprised even herself. That moment turned into coffee, then long walks, then love that neither of them expected. Against all odds, two students from different worlds built something real. He called her sunshine because she always overthought the rain. Her parents, however, saw none of that. Her mother, Claudia Hart, came from a line of people who measured worth by the shine of their dinnerware. "He's sweet, but sweet doesn't buy stability," she would say. Her father, Gerald, was harsher. "The boy has nothing, no connections, no pedigree. You can do better." Evelyn had smiled through those speeches. "He has everything that matters," she would reply. "He has integrity." "Integrity doesn't pay for houses," her father snapped once. Evelyn walked away that night and didn't return home for months. When Marcus proposed, he did it under the cracked neon sign of a late-night diner. "It's not the fanciest place," he admitted, nervous, "but it's where we shared our first coffee, so it feels right." Evelyn laughed through tears and said yes. They saved for a small wedding. No ballroom, no orchestra, just vows spoken under fairy lights. Her family came, stiff smiles hiding disapproval. Her sister Rachel whispered, "Couldn't you have waited until Marcus could afford something nicer?" Evelyn pretended not to hear, but her heart stung. The marriage was quiet and beautiful. Marcus worked as a project engineer for a renewable energy firm, while Evelyn became a marketing coordinator. Their one-bedroom apartment smelled of cinnamon candles and hope. On weekends, they explored the city's hidden parks and dreamed about a little house near a lake, maybe 2 children, a dog. "Simple dreams," Marcus once said, brushing her hair from her eyes. "Simple doesn't mean small," she replied. They built a love that needed no witnesses, only commitment. But every family dinner was a battlefield fought with smiles. Still in that tiny apartment, Claudia would ask casually, slicing roast beef with precision, "When will you give us grandchildren?" Gerald added. Then turning to Rachel, "Sweetheart, you're doing so well at the law firm. Have you met anyone serious yet?" Evelyn bit her tongue until she tasted blood. Under the table, Marcus squeezed her hand. "We're fine," she whispered. "We don't need them to understand." His eyes told her he already knew. Leah, her childhood best friend, was there through most of it, or so Evelyn believed. They had shared everything since elementary school. Scraped knees, secret crushes, teenage heartbreak. But as the years passed, Leah gravitated toward Rachel. "Your sister's just more fun," she once explained when Evelyn confronted her. "You're always so serious lately." Evelyn smiled thinly. "Life gets serious when you have to fight for every bit of respect." Leah had shrugged. "Your family loves you in their own way." Evelyn didn't argue, but she stopped believing it. Then came the illness. Started with headaches. Probably stress, Marcus said, rubbing his temples. But one morning he collapsed during a run. The hospital lights were too bright, the doctor's words too sharp. Stage 4 brain cancer. Evelyn remembered gripping Marcus's hand until her nails left marks. "We'll fight this," she said. He smiled faintly. "We. Always we." She called her parents that night, her voice shaking. "Marcus is very sick." Her mother sighed. "Oh, that's awful. But you know doctors exaggerate. Stay positive." "Oh, Rachel might be getting engaged soon." Evelyn hung up the phone and stared at the wall, feeling the echo of her mother's indifference. When she told Leah, her friend had wept and promised, "I'll be there through everything." For a while she was, bringing soup, holding Evelyn when she cried. But as months passed, Leah's visits dwindled. "Work's crazy," she'd text. "Next weekend, I swear." Meanwhile, Marcus fought with quiet courage. The treatments ravaged his body, but he never complained. One night as she cleaned his foreline, he whispered, "Promise me when I'm gone you'll live, Evie. Don't let them break you." She kissed his forehead and said, "I promise." The next few weeks became a blur of hospital corridors, sleepless nights, and the steady rhythm of machines keeping Marcus alive. Evelyn spent every waking moment by his side, reading aloud from his favorite novels and pretending that laughter could chase death away. Her parents rarely called. When they did, it was always the same polite detachment. "How is he doing?" her mother would ask, her tone as casual as asking about the weather. "The doctors are doing their best," Evelyn would reply. The conversations never lasted long. They ended with her mother's inevitable, "Keep us updated, dear," and the soft click of disinterest. One evening, as Evelyn sat by Marcus's bedside, he opened his eyes and studied her face. "You look tired," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "When was the last time you slept?" "Yesterday, maybe," she lied. He smiled weakly. "You were always a terrible liar." She pressed his hand against her cheek. "If I sleep, I might miss a moment with you." His expression softened. "Then stay awake a little longer, sunshine. Just a little longer." Evelyn forced a smile, but tears streamed silently down her face. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious to the war being lost in that hospital room. Evelyn texted her mother again the following morning. "He's getting worse. Please come." The reply came hours later. "Your sister's engagement is this weekend. We'll try to visit next week." She read the words 3 times, hoping they might change if she looked hard enough. They didn't. When she told Marcus, he squeezed her hand gently. "Don't be angry with them," he said. "Some people just don't know how to handle pain." She wanted to argue, to scream that love was supposed to make people show up, not vanish. But she swallowed the words. "You always make excuses for them," she whispered. "Maybe because you don't deserve this kind of loneliness." He answered softly the day before Rachel's engagement party. Evelyn's phone rang again. It was her mother. "Sweetheart, you're still coming, right? What?" Evelyn's voice trembled. "Mom, Marcus can't even stand on his own." "It's just one evening," her mother insisted. "Rachel will be so disappointed if you're not there. She wants you to be a bridesmaid." Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. "He's dying, Mom." There was a pause, then a sigh. "You're being dramatic again. People die every day, Evelyn. Rachel only gets engaged once." The line went dead before Evelyn could respond. She sat motionless, staring at the phone like it had betrayed her. That weekend, the hospital room felt quieter than ever. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, his breathing shallow and labored. Evelyn barely left his side. The nurse adjusted the morphine drip and whispered gently, "It won't be long now." Evelyn nodded numbly. The next morning at 3:27 a.m., Marcus exhaled his final breath. Evelyn held his hand, whispering, "I love you more than yesterday, less than tomorrow." When the nurse quietly confirmed the time of death, Evelyn felt her world collapse inward. There were no screams, only silence so heavy it pressed against her chest until breathing became a choice she no longer wanted to make. Marcus's parents arrived within an hour, their faces pale but resolute. His mother embraced Evelyn tightly, whispering, "You were his whole world." His father, eyes glistening, added, "He always said you were the best thing that ever happened to him." Together they began the grim tasks of contacting the funeral home, signing papers, and preparing for what came next. Evelyn barely registered the words around her. Her movements felt automatic, her body a shell running on obligation. Her phone buzzed once. A message from her mother. "We need to talk now." Below it, 22 missed calls. She turned the device face down on the counter. The funeral was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Evelyn sent invitations and texts to everyone. Her parents, Rachel, Leah, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would come now. On the morning of the service, the sky hung low and gray. She arrived early, dressed in black, and sat beside Marcus's closed casket, whispering her final words. At 9 a.m. the guests began to arrive. Marcus's co-workers, neighbors, college friends, even the barista from their favorite cafe. Everyone but her family. 9:30 came. Then 10 o'clock. Still, the seats reserved for her parents and sister remained empty. As the ceremony began, Evelyn's chest ached with disbelief. The officiant spoke of Marcus's kindness, his dedication, his quiet brilliance. Friends shared stories that made the room laugh through tears. When it was Evelyn's turn, her hands trembled around the paper she had written the night before. "Marcus taught me that love isn't grand gestures, it's staying even when life hurts. Showing up. Every single day." Her voice broke, but she forced herself to finish. As she stepped down, her phone vibrated with a notification. Against her better judgment, she glanced at it and froze. Rachel had posted photos from her engagement party. Champagne glasses, laughter. A caption, "Family first. Always." Evelyn stared at the screen, the irony slicing deeper than any knife. Family first. The timestamp revealed that the celebration had stretched into multiple days. While she'd been choosing Marcus's burial clothes, they'd been toasting in sequins. When she'd been signing his death certificate, they'd been dancing beneath chandeliers. Marcus's mother noticed her trembling hands. "Evelyn, are you all right?" she asked softly. "Yes," Evelyn lied. "I'm fine." But her stomach churned with something darker than grief, betrayal so sharp it left her breathless. By the time the casket was lowered into the ground, she no longer had tears left to give. That night, Evelyn returned to the empty apartment. Every corner screamed of Marcus, the half-read book on the couch, his jacket still draped over the chair, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. She turned on her phone again, only to find it flooded with messages. Her mother, "Sorry we couldn't make it." Rachel was unwell after the party. Her father, "We're thinking of you." Rachel, "Hope the funeral went well." Leah, "I overslept after the party. Feel terrible. Please let me come by tomorrow." Evelyn set the phone down, shaking her head slowly. "No," she whispered to the empty room. "You had your chance." Evelyn tried to make tea, but her hands shook too much to hold the kettle steady. The sound of the boiling water reminded her of the machines that had beeped through Marcus's final days. She set the cup down untouched and sank to the kitchen floor, hugging her knees. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Leah. "Please, Evie. Me explain. I made a terrible mistake." Evelyn stared at the screen, tears stinging her eyes. "You made a choice," she whispered. "And so did I." She turned the phone off again, letting the silence reclaim the room. The following morning, an email appeared from Timothy, one of Marcus's colleagues. The subject line read, "You should see this." Attached was a video file. Evelyn hesitated before pressing play. The footage showed the terrace of the Grand Hotel. Balloons, flowers, laughter. Her family was there, raising champagne glasses. Rachel, her cheeks flushed with alcohol, clinked her glass and said, "Here's to celebrating real priorities. Thank you, everyone, for choosing joy over drama." Her mother laughed. Her father nodded proudly. And then Leah's voice floated into the recording. Evelyn's always been the queen of exaggeration. She'll turn a paper cut into a tragedy. Laughter erupted. The phone slipped from Evelyn's hand, the video still playing as she stared in disbelief. Her mother's voice came next, distinct even through the background noise. She called last night saying Marcus might be dying. The timing, right before Rachel's party. So inconsiderate. Rachel giggled. Typical Evelyn. Always making everything about her. Evelyn stopped the video, her breath catching. Every wound she had endured for years, dismissed achievements, second-hand love, invisible loyalty, had been exposed in that single clip. They hadn't just ignored her grief. They had mocked it. Mocked him. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The video replayed in her mind on an endless loop, every laugh echoing like a nail in the coffin of her old life. At dawn, she finally rose and called Susan, a colleague who had become a quiet source of support during Marcus's illness. When Susan answered, Evelyn's voice trembled. "Do you know anything about family trusts?" Susan paused. "My husband does. He's an estate lawyer." "Why?" "My parents texted me last night. They said they need me to sign some documents. Something about the family trust." "Evelyn," Susan said firmly, "don't sign anything until Richard reads it. Grief makes people vulnerable. Sometimes the ones closest to us use that." Before Evelyn could respond, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Leah, flowers in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other. "I have to go," Evelyn whispered. "She's here." Susan's voice softened. "Be careful, okay?" Evelyn took a deep breath before opening the door. Leah's mascara was smudged, her eyes red. "Please, just 5 minutes," she pleaded. Evelyn stood firm, blocking the entrance. 5 minutes won't undo a lifetime. Leah's lower lip trembled. "I know I hurt you, but I didn't mean what I said in that video." "You meant every word," Evelyn replied quietly. "You laughed while they humiliated me." Leah's voice broke. "I was just trying to fit in. Rachel, she's manipulative. You know how she gets. If you don't agree with her, she turns everyone against you." Evelyn's eyes narrowed, and instead of standing up for what's right, you joined her. Leah's shoulders sagged. "You don't understand. Your family. They have a way of making you feel like nothing unless you're on their side." Evelyn's voice rose, trembling with rage. "My husband died, Leah. And you chose champagne over compassion." Leah's tears spilled freely. "We've been friends for 20 years. Were," Evelyn corrected coldly. "Past tense." Leah tried one last time. "Your family sent me here. They're worried about you." Evelyn laughed bitterly. "Worried? They didn't even show up for his funeral." Leah swallowed. "They just want to talk. Then they can talk to my lawyer." Evelyn closed the door slowly, ignoring Leah's pleading voice on the other side. Once the house was silent again, she leaned against the door and finally let herself sob. The kind of sob that came from the deepest part of her. Half grief, half rage, all exhaustion. "You told me to live, Marcus," she whispered into the quiet. "I'm trying." The next morning her phone buzzed non-stop. Her father. "We're coming over at 11. We need to resolve this family situation." Evelyn didn't reply. Instead, she called Richard, Susan's husband, who had reviewed the trust documents her parents had emailed overnight. "Evelyn," he said gravely, "if you sign these papers, you'll be giving up your share of the family trust. They're redirecting everything to Rachel. They need your signature because the original terms split it evenly between you two." "They want to disinherit me," she whispered. "Yes, and they're using grief to make you compliant. Don't let them." At exactly 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Evelyn checked the security camera. Her parents stood there, flanked by Rachel and Leah. They looked like a delegation arriving for a meeting rather than a condolence visit. She took a slow breath before opening the door. Her mother swept in first. "Finally," she said sharply. "We've been trying to reach you for days." "It's been 24 hours," Evelyn replied evenly. My husband has been dead for exactly 1 day. No need to be melodramatic, Rachel said, tossing her hair. We all knew this was coming. Evelyn's jaw clenched. Why are you here? Her father stepped forward, holding a briefcase. We're worried about you, he began, his tone rehearsed. Isolating yourself isn't healthy. We thought you might come stay with us for a while. Evelyn folded her arms. And the briefcase? He hesitated. Just a few family documents that need updating. The trust? She asked calmly. Her mother's eyes flickered with unease. How did you? I know everything, Evelyn interrupted. You want me to sign away my inheritance the day after burying my husband. I'm not that broken. Rachel groaned. Can we just get this over with? It's not like she needs the money. Didn't Marcus leave her life insurance? Evelyn stared at her sister. Get. Her mother blinked, stunned by Evelyn's tone. Don't talk to your sister like that, she scolded. Evelyn stood taller. Why not? You all talked about me like a joke in that hotel video. Mocked my husband while he was dying. Rachel's smirk faltered. What video? Evelyn opened her phone, tapped play, and placed it on the table. Their laughter filled the room. For once, they couldn't talk over it. Her father turned pale. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Rachel's eyes widened in horror before narrowing in anger. When it ended, silence fell like a heavy curtain. That's out of context, her father said finally. There's no context where that's acceptable, Evelyn replied coldly. You mocked a dying man. You mocked me. Leah spoke softly. Evelyn, please, Don't, Evelyn snapped. You were there too. Her mother sighed, regaining her composure. We said foolish things, yes, but grief makes people. You weren't grieving, Evelyn shouted. You were celebrating while I buried the love of my life. The fury that had slept inside her for decades finally broke free. For 32 years you've treated me like I was less than her, she said, pointing at Rachel. Today it ends. Rachel stood up sharply. You're being ridiculous. You've always played the victim. Mom and Dad helped you when you couldn't even afford your wedding dress. Helped? Evelyn laughed bitterly. You mean lectured and humiliated me for marrying someone they thought wasn't good enough. Her father's voice grew stern. We were only trying to protect you. From happiness? She asked. Because that's all Marcus ever gave me. Her mother frowned. We did what parents do. No, Evelyn said quietly, her voice trembling. You did what cruel people do. You withheld love and called it guidance. Leah moved toward her cautiously. Evelyn, please. Don't throw everyone away. You'll regret it later. Evelyn's eyes glistened with tears, but her voice was steady. Regret. I regret not standing up for myself sooner. Rachel scoffed. You're overreacting. It was one video. It was my life. Evelyn shot back. Every word, every laugh, every absence, it's all there. Proof that none of you ever saw me as family. Her mother stepped forward, lowering her tone. You're emotional. We should discuss this when you're calmer. Evelyn shook her head. No, Mother. I've never seen things more clearly. Her father's patience snapped. Enough of this nonsense. You'll sign these papers whether you like it or not. He opened his briefcase and slid the trust amendment across the table. Evelyn didn't even look at it. You can keep your money, she said. I don't want it. Rachel smirked. Finally, some sense. Evelyn met her gaze. But you'll never get my forgiveness. Rachel rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You think anyone cares about your forgiveness? Evelyn took a step closer, her voice low and shaking with rage. One day, Rachel, you'll know what it feels like to have everyone you love choose a party over your pain. And when that day comes, I hope you remember this moment. Her mother gasped softly. How dare you speak to your sister like that? How dare you call yourselves my family? Evelyn replied. You failed me when it mattered most. Leah whispered, Please, Evie. Evelyn turned to her, eyes glistening. Don't call me that. You lost the right. Leah's tears spilled, but Evelyn didn't waver. She walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Her father stood red-faced. You're making a mistake you'll regret. The only mistake was believing you'd ever change, Evelyn said. Now leave. One by one they filed out, the parents avoiding her eyes, Rachel muttering curses, Leah sobbing softly. As her mother passed, she grabbed Evelyn's arm. You will regret this, young lady. When the grief fades, you'll come crawling back. Evelyn gently pulled her hand away. No, Claudia, she said softly, using her mother's first name for the first time. When the grief fades, I'll finally be free. Her mother froze, shocked. Evelyn shut the door slowly, the click echoing through the empty house. For a long moment she stood there, breathing in silence. Then her legs gave way and she sank to the floor, tears falling freely, not of despair this time but release. That night, Evelyn sat by the window with a cup of tea that had gone cold. She called Susan and whispered, It's done. You stood up for yourself. Susan asked gently. Yes, Evelyn said. I told them to leave. I'm proud of you, Susan replied. It takes courage to walk away from people who keep hurting you. Evelyn exhaled shakily. It hurts, though. It will for a while, Susan said softly. But it's a different kind of pain, the kind that heals. Evelyn looked up at the stars, wondering if Marcus was out there, somewhere proud of her too. The days that followed were quiet, almost eerily so. For the first time in her life, there were no messages demanding her attention, no phone calls filled with guilt or manipulation. The house was filled only with her own breathing. She cleaned out Marcus's closet, crying softly over his shirts, then folded each one neatly to donate. Every small act of letting go felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She started therapy with Dr. Laurel, who specialized in grief and family trauma. You've suffered what we call disenfranchised grief, the therapist explained. When those who should comfort you instead compound your pain. Evelyn began attending a widow's support group at a community center on Thursdays. The first time she walked in, her hands trembled, but she stayed. There were 8 women, all different ages, all carrying invisible wounds. They listened, shared, and never judged. One of them, Sarah, who had lost her husband to a heart attack, became her friend. You'll wake up one day and realize you can breathe again, Sarah told her over coffee. Not because the pain's gone, but because you've learned to live beside it. For the first time since Marcus's death, Evelyn believed that might actually be true. The widows' group became Evelyn's anchor. Every Thursday evening, she sat among women who understood her silence. They didn't rush her to move on. They simply listened. One evening, Sarah turned to her after a long discussion about guilt. You know, she said, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you've stopped living in the wound. Evelyn nodded slowly. Later that night, she wrote those words on a sticky note and placed it beside Marcus's photo. For the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. Weeks passed, and Evelyn began noticing small shifts inside herself. She started walking around the park every morning, breathing in the crisp air, feeling the world again. She went back to work part-time, where her colleagues welcomed her gently, no questions asked. On weekends, she read books that had gathered dust and listened to music she and Marcus had loved. It still hurt, but the pain no longer swallowed her whole. Her therapist called it integration. You're learning to carry the loss, not be crushed by it, Dr. Laurel explained. That's strength, Evelyn. Real strength. Her in-laws remained a steady presence. Sharon, Marcus's mother, called every Sunday just to chat. You'll always be our daughter, she'd say. That doesn't end because he's gone. Her father-in-law, Henry, came by often to fix leaky faucets and help with paperwork. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, he reminded her one afternoon. You already proved what love looks like. Their kindness highlighted what she had never received from her own parents: unconditional care. It filled the spaces where bitterness had once lived. 3 months after Marcus's death, Evelyn decided to move. The apartment was too full of memories. She found a smaller place across town, a cozy bungalow near a park. While packing, she opened Marcus's nightstand and found an envelope labeled for Evie. Her breath caught. Inside was a 3-page letter written in his uneven handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone," it began. "Please don't spend your life in shadows. You were my light, and I want you to shine again." She clutched the letter to her chest, crying until her body trembled, but through the tears came a sense of peace. The letter changed everything. Evelyn framed the last line, "Build a beautiful life, sunshine," and hung it by her bedside. She began volunteering twice a week at the same hospital where Marcus had been treated, sitting with patients during chemotherapy sessions. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just held hands. It was painful at first, but slowly healing. "You remind me of someone I used to know," one patient said softly. Evelyn smiled. He was brave too. She never mentioned Marcus's name, but somehow they all felt his presence through her. Through her volunteer work, Evelyn met Elaine and Frank, an older couple who had lost their son to cancer years before. They invited her for Sunday dinners and treated her with the tenderness of parents who understood deep loss. "Grief connects souls," Elaine said one evening while washing dishes. "We don't get to choose who becomes family, but sometimes we get a second chance at it." Evelyn looked at them and realized she had, in fact, found something that looked like family again, gentle, warm, and true. At the encouragement of her therapist, Evelyn began writing again. What started as a private journal became essays about love, loss, and survival. She shared a few pieces online, and to her surprise, strangers wrote back. Messages poured in. "Your story helped me feel less alone. Thank you for putting my grief into words." Each comment reminded her that her pain had a purpose. "Maybe that's why I'm still here," she told Sarah one afternoon at the cafe. "To help someone else make it through." Sarah smiled. "That's what healing looks like." By the time the first anniversary of Marcus's passing arrived, Evelyn had built a small but meaningful life. She worked 4 days a week, volunteered on weekends, and met her support group friends for coffee and laughter that felt genuine again. On the anniversary day, she drove with Marcus's parents to Lake Superior, the place he'd wanted his ashes scattered. The sky was clear, the water a calm mirror. As the ashes drifted away, Sharon whispered, "He'd be proud of you." Evelyn nodded, tears glinting like sunlight on water. "I think he'd say I finally kept my promise." That evening, Evelyn returned home to an email from her mother. The subject line read, "Family emergency. Her father had suffered a mild heart attack. We need your help with the medical bills," the message said. "Please call us." Evelyn sat very still, the old ache threatening to return. Out of curiosity, she searched the local news. Her father was stable. Another article mentioned that Rachel's fiancé had called off their engagement amid rumors of financial scandal. For a long time, Evelyn stared at the screen. Then, instead of replying, she copied a list of medical assistance programs and emailed it back with no message attached. Days later, Sarah mentioned seeing Leah at a coffee shop. "She asked about you," Sarah said carefully. "Said she misses you but understands why you cut her off." Evelyn only nodded. The anger that once burned inside her had cooled into quiet acceptance. "Some bridges," she said softly, "are meant to stay ashes." Still that night she thought of Leah, not with hatred, but with sadness for what could have been. "Maybe forgiveness isn't about letting people back in," she whispered to Marcus's photo. "Maybe it's just about freeing myself." Months passed, and the heaviness that once ruled Evelyn's days began to lift. She smiled more often now, genuine quiet smiles that didn't need to be forced. Her mornings started with music again. She grew herbs in her kitchen window, cooked meals she and Marcus had once loved, and invited friends from her grief group to share them. Laughter slowly returned to her home, not loud or careless, but warm and earned. "You're glowing lately," Sarah said one evening as they packed meals for new widows. Evelyn smiled. "I'm remembering who I am without forgetting who I loved." Her writing gained attention. One of her blog posts about surviving betrayal was shared thousands of times. A local magazine reached out, asking her to write a column on resilience and recovery. The first piece she wrote was titled "The Family We Choose." "Family," she began, "is not defined by blood but by presence. It's the people who stay when everyone else leaves." The editor called it beautiful. Readers called it truth. Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Validation that came from her own voice, not from someone else's approval. Spring arrived, painting the world with new colors. Evelyn bought a small house with a garden. Her first home owned solely in her name. She spent weekends planting roses and lavender, imagining Marcus teasing her for buying too many seeds. One afternoon, as she knelt in the soil, she whispered, "Look at me, Marcus. I did it. I built something of my own." A soft wind stirred the flowers, brushing her cheek like a gentle touch. She smiled up at the sky, feeling his presence in the quiet sunlight. 2 years after Marcus's death, Evelyn visited the cemetery. She brought fresh lilies and placed them by his stone. "2 years, my love," she said softly. "Some days it feels like yesterday. Some days like another lifetime." She talked to him as she always did, telling him about her new house, her column, and the friends who had become her chosen family. "You were right," she whispered. "I am stronger than I knew." She sat there for hours, watching clouds drift by until a familiar voice broke her reverie. "Evelyn." She turned and saw Leah standing at a distance, holding a small bouquet. For a moment neither spoke. Leah's face looked older, softer. Her usual polish replaced by something humbler. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said quietly. "I come here every year." Evelyn blinked, surprised. "You visit him?" Leah nodded. "It's the least I can do. I owed him that much. And you?" She hesitated before stepping closer. "You can put them down," Evelyn said gently, moving aside. Leah placed the flowers next to hers, tears welling in her eyes. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," Leah began, voice trembling. "Not just for missing the funeral, but for all the years I let your family make me think less of you. I was weak, and I see that now." Evelyn studied her, searching for deceit but finding only remorse. "Rachel?" she asked. Leah sighed. "We don't speak anymore. Her fiancé left, her job fell apart, and she blames everyone but herself." They stood in silence for a while, 2 women bound by broken loyalties and time. "I don't expect forgiveness," Leah said softly. "I just needed to tell you I'm sorry." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. I don't hate you, Leah. I never did. I just couldn't keep standing in the same fire that burned me." Leah's tears fell freely. "You've changed," she whispered. "You seem peaceful." "I am," Evelyn said. "It took losing everything to learn what peace really means." Leah smiled sadly. "He'd be proud of you." Evelyn touched the gravestone. "He already is." They exchanged numbers before parting. No promises, no expectations, just a quiet possibility that something good could grow again from honesty. That evening, Evelyn hosted a dinner at her new home. Around her table sat Sarah, Elaine and Frank, Susan and Richard, her chosen circle. The air buzzed with laughter and stories. "To Marcus," Richard toasted, raising his glass. "And to Evelyn, for proving that love doesn't die, it transforms." The group echoed his words, clinking glasses. Evelyn looked around the table, her heart full. These were her people, the ones who showed up, who stayed, who cared. This was what family was meant to look like. Later, after the dishes were cleared and her guests had gone, Evelyn stepped into her garden under the stars. The night air was cool, fragrant with lavender. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Marcus, for loving me enough to teach me how to love myself." A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, brushing her face like a familiar caress. She closed her eyes and smiled. "I'm okay now," she said softly. "I really am." And for the first time she knew it was true. Evelyn turned to go inside, her heart lighter than it had been in years. On her desk lay a note she'd written for her next column. Healing is not forgetting. It's choosing peace over pain, and building beauty from what's broken. She glanced once more at the framed letter Marcus had left her, the words that had carried her through it all. Build a beautiful life, sunshine. She whispered, I did. Then she sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and began to write. Not about loss this time, but about rebirth. And as her fingers moved across the keys, the night around her felt full of light.